This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Tommy DelRossi. Tommy is a Nashville-based drummer, engineer, and producer, originally from New England, relocating to Nashville in 2012. He has toured the country with various artists and have been the drummer for Shaun Murphy's band since the fall of 2012. Recently, he toured Europe with the Lance Lopez band for his 2024 and 2025 tours, including a live video from the Montreux International Guitar Festival. In the spring of 2025, Tom opened his own recording studio in Nashville, Coming Soon Sounds, and is working with various local artists, including Shaun Murphy's newest release in the spring of 2026. It's a pleasure to have you on, Tommy.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I know the audience may not know, but you are my cousin.
That is correct.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure for me to watch you since you were a young boy, always be in music. And I remember your brother also is a musician, but I remember you getting involved with music in school, being part of a band and stuff. So maybe we can kind of start there.
Yeah, I was fortunate to grow up in a community that had a wonderful music program, especially in the high school. Jazz band, marching band, concert band, you name it all. And the music director, she later went on to become the superintendent of schools for the whole area, but she had an incredible program, taught us discipline, taught us, outside of music, just wonderful life lessons that I take with me to this day. You know, she used to say, if you're 15 minutes early, you're already late. You know, it was like one of those things, just, it was just like, okay, I get it. I get it now, you know? So I was very fortunate then. And then I went on and continued music in college. And I was teaching for a little bit. And then I eventually moved down to Nashville with my family and made this our home. And have been here for coming up on 14 years.
Wow, time flies, right? It really does. It's interesting that you talk about the influence of a teacher in school, because a lot of musicians that I've had on this program kind of reference bands or their first concert. So what were your influences, very young? Because I know you just said jazz and other things, but what were the bands that you were kind of really drawn to at younger ages?
Oh yeah, definitely like Zeppelin. I was a big fan of Led Zeppelin and John Bonham. Fleetwood Mac. My mom gave me a Fleetwood Mac CD when I first started playing drums, and she was like, "Hey, this band is named after the drummer." I was like, "Oh, really?" You know. And then so I was big into Fleetwood Mac, and a lot of the classic rock stuff. Big into R&B, James Brown, and a pretty eclectic taste in music, which has helped me a lot over the course of my career.
It's so interesting that you mentioned Fleetwood Mac. I mean, your mother and I were very close. But it's interesting because when I think of Fleetwood Mac, one of the kind of famous albums that I always think of is Tusk. And then they did that big, with the marching band. To see that live for people, or to even watch it now on YouTube, the coordination of all those people and, to have it sound so loud like that, it's just incredible. So as a drummer, when you see marching bands and you see a band or an artist take a different direction with something, how does it make you feel?
I mean, I love it. I mean, especially being a drummer, anything that's kind of unique or a little bit different outside the box when it comes to having different sounds, percussion, like a drum line, playing with a rock and roll band. And I think that was the University of USC, so that was California, that did that album with Tusk, and that's kind of cool. And nowadays, with production as it is, especially in live shows and stuff, everything's gotten bigger and extremer. So it's not out of the ordinary to see something different like that. But then it was, that was pretty unique early on, for them to do something like that.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it's very interesting. So, when do you really realize saying to yourself, I want to focus on drums? Because you probably tried a few different instruments early on.
Well, my brother Bobby had a drum kit when I was a kid. And I remember my brother Matt and I go stay at his apartment, and he had his drum set up, and he gave me a pair of sticks, and I took those sticks home, and It wasn't 2 or 3 days later that my mom hid those sticks on me because I was running around the house hitting everything with them. But they sensed that there was something there, and they were very supportive. And then eventually got me into taking lessons and bought me my first drum kit, and were supportive all the way through. Growing up and making this life choice and a career.
Yes, it's so important. I know your parents personally, but it's so important when parents, support, especially a child that wants to do drums. Because I've had a lot of guitarists on this show that have said the reason why I'm a guitarist is because my mom told me to get rid of the drums. So, yeah.
Fortunately, my brother Matt, who was a little bit older than me, he already was playing the guitar. So I don't think they could have dealt with two guitarists in the house. So they were like, let's do something different.
That's so awesome. Yeah, so, starting out and doing local bands, I know you played a lot in Massachusetts. How did it feel for you to really make the step from being in a local band to really working with signed artists and getting really involved in the scene?
It was a natural process. Like anything, you kind of work your way up. I was fortunate that I got with Shaun Murphy shortly after moving to Nashville, and that was just by happenstance. I was new to Nashville. I was new to how things work. And this city's really about relationships, and building relationships with people. I found a jam session that was being held in town, and I didn't know it was for, pros only. It was for, so it was where all these pros were going to hang out and talk. And I was just trying to get my foot in the door. And it took about a month and a half till I was able to get up and play and finally play. I would just go and socialize and meet all these people. And then I finally got up and played, and they were like, well, this kid is good and he's determined. He keeps coming back. Then people started throwing my name out, and then it started, oh, okay, we'll go try this. And that's how I got a last minute phone call to go to Florida and to sub with the Shaun Murphy band. And I didn't have a rehearsal. I didn't have any. It was last minute. I got the material, went down and played a big festival down there. And she loved me. I've been in her road band ever since, and I've played on like six of her records. And she's an awesome person in my life. She's done it all. I mean, your listeners they might not know her name, but they've heard her voice. She's been with Bob Seger's band for the Silver Bullet Band. She's an original member of that band. She did a record with Eric Clapton. She was with Little Feat for a while. She did a record with Meatloaf. So she's a pretty established singer. So for somebody like that, to take me in and start working with me, that kind of helped put a feather in my cap, kind of help. Okay, I can do this.
Wow. Well, I've listened to her music. It's phenomenal. How would you classify her music? Like, if someone listened to it, would they really say she's jazz, or is she a combination of jazz and country? How would you describe her?
I would describe her as roots, American roots music. There's blues, there's rock and roll, there's jazz, there's country. America is a melting pot, and American music, we may put things into genres, but you kind of throw it all together and you have this roots music. You have this music that is uniquely American because it's come from all these different sources. And so yeah, I would put her in like the roots category. Americana.
I have to give you a lot of credit because to get a last minute phone call is one thing, but to then also have to collect all the material and perhaps not be so familiar with it, that's a lot of pressure in itself.
Oh yeah, I mean I didn't know any of the material except for the week and a half I had to prep and go. But that kind of happens in Nashville. That this city, like I said, a lot of it's built on relationships, and that's happened to me multiple times over the course of my career. I was in 2019. I got a phone call from a friend of mine in New York City. There was a musical called The Night with Janis Joplin, and they were doing their North American tour with it. It was on Broadway. It left Broadway, and this was the Broadway cast, and they were having the hardest time getting a drummer. And I was referred to the musical director, and they called me a week before the tour was starting. Same thing. All right, I got a week to learn the material. I flew up, did a week of rehearsals with the show, and then we went and did 40 shows across the country. So this stuff can happen at a drop. You just kind of got to be prepared for that, and you get better and better at it the more you have to do it.
Yes, and I think back to what you said in the beginning of the interview the music director that you had just probably prepared you very uniquely for those circumstances where, you have to be on time, you have to, all of those little things that were told to you that made an impression ended up coming in at hand later in your life with this lessons learned very quickly, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So someone would consider you a session player, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I do session work all the time. That's so much fun because a lot of that stuff, it might be just somebody has a little voice memo on their phone or they have an idea and they come in and it's our job to bring it to life and to make something out of it. So, I mean, it's music. We're not performing surgery. As long as you have fun with it, that's the biggest thing for me.
That is so true. But, with all of that said, it does have to be very unique, the music, and it does have to, because there's been so many things throughout the year. So many people have these stories about how their song sounded too similar to someone else's song. So as you create music, you have to really like say, this has got to be original, just to avoid all of those headaches, right?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, there's only 13 notes out there, so it's like colors or writing, It's like music's a language, so you learn how to get a story across, like an author would pen a book. He's not reinventing or she's not reinventing the wheel. That you learn how to elaborate on these stories and have a voice that or a style that's unique in your own. But it's got to be a conversation. Like music, it's a conversation. If it doesn't have that flow to it, then it doesn't tend to catch on.
So, something that you said, I want to circle back to about being involved in a Broadway production that ended up going on the road. Plays and musical plays have certain areas where you can see a shift in the audience because of how the music kind of incorporates into the play. Were there any kind of moments during those 40 shows that you really saw certain audiences impact the show, or maybe some of the venues that you felt were different than others? Because you had a really good experience to not just play for one audience, but many different audiences. And in some of these places, historical venues, some of these buildings that they take on the road are 100-year-old buildings. So I'm sure the acoustics and everything that you have to deal with. So, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, that was pretty fun playing a lot of really cool theaters. We played the Duke Ellington Theater in New Jersey, which is a real famous theater. I got to play the Fox Theater in Detroit, which is another real famous theater. Balboa Theater in Beverly, no, Balboa Theater I think is in San Diego. Playing all these different venues and having to, what was unique about that tour is the band wasn't in a pit like you see with most musicals. That was we were cast members essentially. We were on stage. We were in costume. So dynamics, we had to make sure as the band we were controlling the dynamics. Every theater is different. We weren't shoved in the basement somewhere, which is what usually gets happened on these theater shows, so that they control the sound and stuff. So it was really cool. There's nothing like playing a venue and hitting your kick drum, hitting the snare drum, and hearing it reverb off the walls and go, wow. That's really cool. Same thing, I was very fortunate to do a session in Memphis, Tennessee at Sun Studio, which is where like Jerry Lee Lewis recorded, Johnny Cash recorded. And when you walk into that room and you talk, you just hear those walls and you go, "Wow, I've heard this before." And so that's really cool. Yeah. It's fun when you get to play a room that you've seen before in videos or something like that, and you go, wow, I just played here. I got to sign the backstage wall. I mean, it brings you back to being a kid and why you do this, you know?
Yes, I was there on a tour. There's a marker on the floor and it says, like, stand here, and there's a microphone in front of you. And they tell you all the people that stood there. Quite literally, I had like the chills. I was like, oh my God. Like when you really realize the amount of talent that was just standing in that same spot.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool, man. It's we're fortunate. And being in Nashville, there's a ton of those here locally, just because of how big the music industry has been in this city. When we were in Europe, we were over in Germany. and I think it was Bonn. I'm trying to remember the name of the city, but we got to play. They have a music venue in an old bunker that was built by Napoleon. So it's like this old Napoleon bunker that is now a music venue, and you're just like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like this is really unique experience. Not everybody gets to play a bunker, a Napoleon bunker.
Yes, well, you may have a book inside of you with all these experiences. Wow, that's wild. You know, I really admire your flexibility, not just being able to pick up and do things last minute, but like you mentioned, being part of a Broadway play and having to play in costume and remember that you're acting as a drummer, even though you are a drummer, so you have to watch everything else that's happening around you, which sometimes when you're playing a live show, you're not necessarily watching everything that's happening around you, right? So that's kind of a unique thing.
That was part of the reason why I got the phone call and I was recommended for the gig because it was like the show was about Janis Joplin. So there was a lot of rock and roll music in it. And the drummers that were doing the production were great drummers, but they were from the New York Broadway background. They were used to being in the pit somewhere and just playing the drums, and they needed somebody that is used to being on stage and used to being charismatic and bringing that stage energy to it a little bit. I was fortunate in that aspect.
That's wild. Yeah. Well, you were very lucky to be part of, a Janis production because her music is incredible. I'm sure the draw just for people to go see it was just based on her and her life and her music, which is timeless, pretty incredible.
Yeah, when we were out in California, like you mentioned earlier, like different audiences and stuff, you could really feel the energy of her legacy still out there. Not that it wasn't anywhere else, but out there it was some different shows. Just the vibe of the audience was just a little, we got to meet the family because it was a sanctioned show by the family. So I met Janice's brother Michael, and so yeah, it was a whole different vibe once we hit the West Coast. It was kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah, that is really something. When meeting the family, especially since her passing was tragic. And there's been a lot about her life ever since she has passed. A lot of people feel that, her life was cut short and she had so much that she had shown the world in such a short period of time. People often question what she could have done if she had stayed here longer. And to meet the family, I mean, did they give a review of the show or were they just thanking everyone? What was their take on seeing her life in motion like that?
So the story, the show, the Broadway show was a fictitious story. All the words that the character Janice said, she said in real life. So it was taken from her words. And a lot of it was from a book that was written from letters she would send home to her family. And so within the story, there was some like dream sequences and stuff. And so there was hypothetical duets that never actually happened. They did this to get other characters involved in the story to make it a musical. But the family was involved in the writing of the show. So the family was part of the whole production of it all. It was sanctioned by the Joplin estate. They'd seen it before when it was on Broadway and stuff. And then, like, when we were out there, they came out to support us. And yeah, just good people, just happy that Janice's songs are still out there and that people are still thinking about her and that it still continues to grow.
Well, I really like that you said that some direct quotes of her from her letters were repeated in the show. It's like her voice lives on. And I think
Yeah.
that's really very touching. That's really incredible. What was one of your favorite numbers that you did during that show? Like, did you have, when you see a song coming up, you're like excited to play it maybe more than others? Or
It's got to be one of the bangers, Piece of My Heart or Try, or, what are the songs that just, they always crush. The audience always are waiting for that moment. And I'm one of those guys that when I go to see a band and I go to hear something, I want to hear the hits. I want to hear the stuff that I know. I'm all for getting to hear new music, but it's like, to me, it's like, give me what I want. Give me what I came here for.
I love that you say that because I am a concert holic. I go to so many concerts. And a lot of times the artist will be like, I'm going to play you some of my new stuff. And I haven't really followed it, like, oh no, I want to hear my stuff. It's like we make it our own. It's like, no, I want to hear
Exactly.
my song. Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. You really have had an interesting span of experiences. Going to Europe, tell me a bit about working with Lance Lopez and his band. What was that like?
Lance is a fantastic guitar player. He's virtuoso, like amazing. He's from Texas, and that was fun because that was a small band. It was a drummer, myself, the bass player Logan, and Lance. So it was the three of us, and so it was a power trio. So there was a lot of space that we could explore. It was just three musicians playing on stage. And but he's a lot to keep up with because when I say he's a virtuoso, I mean he's a madman behind that instrument. So it's fun. That was a fun show. It was we got to play some really cool venues, like I said, in Europe, Montreux, Switzerland. We got to play the casino in Montreux, which is if you know the song "Smoke on the Water." That song was written about a casino in Montreux, a music venue that burnt down, and that was the Smoke on the Water. So it's a real famous place, and so we went and we got to play the festival there, right there in the Lake Geneva shoreline, and so that was another really cool experience just to be there singing Deep Purple as I'm walking down the streets of Montreux, Switzerland. It's like, all right, I'm here.
That's amazing. That song is classic. I remember growing up, and the kid behind our house was kind of standing on his back patio playing that over and over again. It was like he was expelled from the house or something, and he would just play that. And it's a classic beginning, and he was just going back and forth over Smoke on the Water. And every time I hear that, that story about, how the song came about and everything, people always talk about, but I always see the kid in the backyard playing his guitar to that. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, to have that experience and to actually be there, when you have the reference and it's a musical reference and you're a musician, like it must feel so powerful for you.
Yeah, it just reminds you that this is why you're doing it, This is
Exactly.
and music's a gift that if you're fortunate enough to play it, it's a gift that you should be giving out to other people. You should be gifting it out to the world because that's what it does, is it helps people. You don't know how it helps people. It just helps people, for that few minutes in time they can be thinking about nothing. That is, so I'm very fortunate that can make a living playing music, and I don't take it for granted. I joke about it's not rocket science, but I do believe we're doing good work with it. People need that. People need music in their life.
Absolutely. I believe that it has saved lives. There's so many people that say the lyrics of that song, or I was going to do this, and then, the song came on and the song stopped me from doing something I would have regretted, or it has a message. And sometimes it's not just the lyrics. Sometimes it's the song and the sound of the song that takes them back to a place in time that made them happy and just pulls them out of that. And that's really incredible. That is really something. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about writing songs. So now that you have your new studio, tell me about how that process started, because it's not your home, it's outside of your home. So how did you put that together? Did you have a business plan? Did you just wake up one day and it fell into your lap? How did that all go on?
So I've always been really into recording and hanging out doing as much as I can with recording. It's been, as far as music went, I was a drummer, but this was like a hobby of mine. I like recording music. And so I had a home studio for a while, like everybody does in Nashville. It just got to the point that I outgrew the space and then I needed a bigger space. I had a friend who is a sax player, and he got his real estate license and he was just getting into it. And we had a meeting one day, and I said, "Well, man, I'm really trying to find another property that I could turn into a studio." And he took it on, and he found me this place, and it was perfect. I just had to jump on it. So it's his own building on a property with a house on it. So I moved into the house. I love the fact that I can shut the door to the building. It's not in my house, I could walk out. I just have to walk down the driveway and go to the other building, but it's on my property, so I don't have to go anywhere. So it's like that's the best part of it. But it is its own world. If I don't go in that room, if I don't go in that building, then I can leave it there for a little bit. It's not in my home anymore, which is nice to kind of separate it, have a little bit of the separation. Because, 7 days a week music with me. So it's nice sometimes to just get away from it for a second.
Yes, I recently listened to Eddie Van Halen's brother's book called Brothers about his relationship with Eddie. And he talked about how Eddie wanted to build the studio on his property so that he wouldn't have to be away from the home. And there's a couple of lines in there that he says, like Valerie, Eddie's wife at the time, would be calling him saying, "You have to get Eddie out of there." Like, like he would lock himself in there. And she's like, "He's home, but he's not home. He's not in the house with us." Like, and it was so funny though, listening to it on Audible, because you can hear like the frustration of how much, and then you think of Eddie himself. Eddie was a perfectionist with everything he did. And you could picture him in there, like locked himself in, kind of a thing. So they did talk a lot about building 5150 in that book, about how, not that he abandoned fixing it, but he got so involved once the walls were up, he just wanted starting to record. So they didn't actually have everything completely set up when it was time to record. They were just moving on with recording. So how far did you get through your construction piece of this before you actually said, okay, I'm satisfied to start recording?
So the building was built out. It was already done. The previous owner built the studio. I didn't have to do anything. The studio was there. I closed on the house. I moved on a Friday. I moved all my studio equipment from my house into the studio and was recording a band in there on Tuesday. That's how fast it went for me. By the time I got set up, I wasn't even living on the property yet by the time I was recording in the studio. That was the first thing I needed to do was get all my stuff in there. It also, this being a drummer, equipment piles up and it's big. So there's storage space in the studio. That was another thing too. I had a storage unit that I had to have a bunch of stuff at, my road drums and whatnot. So it was nice to finally be able to get all that stuff out of the storage unit and into a designated area that's just my music building. But I was fortunate. I didn't have to do anything. The construction was done, and which was why we jumped on this property. I was willing to do some construction. I was willing to find a place that I had to move some stuff around. But again, this is Nashville. I wasn't expecting to find a house with a recording studio on the market. But I guess they have them here in Nashville. You can find them.
That is so awesome. How did you come up with the name Coming Soon Sounds?
So that's a little inside joke. The first house I bought in Nashville, I bought with my wife Melissa, who passed away 5 years ago. And we had a sign that was in the house from when we bought it, and it was the real estate sign that said coming soon. And we put that above the master bedroom in our house. After she passed away, I moved out of the master bedroom and I made that the studio because it had big vaulted ceilings and I could fit more people in there because I was doing some studio work in there. So that sign just kind of hung up from the studio. And so people would see that and it would say coming soon, like, oh, we're making a record, it's coming soon. So that's just kind of how that name came about.
Wow. Well, I loved Melissa. She was so special and
Yes,
so
yeah.
funny. And when you say that she had that sign over there, I could see her doing that. Like, she's
Yeah,
making, the whole joke behind, I'm sure, many different ways of taking that sign. So
absolutely.
totally her personality.
Yeah, yeah,
That is
for
so
sure.
great. Wow. So, having the biggest space, how are you advertising this? Like, are you saying, like, I have referrals, or how are you letting everyone know that you have this studio space that you want to see a lot of traffic come through?
Well, I've been getting my feet wet with it. Right now, I've been fortunate enough that I have clients that I work with that I've been working with. So I have a lot of repeat customers and some new people that are coming in. And I haven't really made the big push to do the big advertising for it yet. I think time will come. I'm still playing 200 to 300 shows a year. So I got to slow down my gig schedule to afford more time in the studio, which is what I'm going to probably big focus in 2026. I'm fortunate enough, like I said, I played with Shaun Murphy in her road band for over 10 years, and I've done 5 or 6 studio albums with her. The last 3 we did were produced and engineered by a Grammy Award-winning producer named Kevin McKendry at his studio in town. And so I've been able to kind of sit in the background as we do these projects and just soak up as much as I can. And then on this record, she entrusted me to record it and produce this one. So before I do a big push on advertising and getting other people in here, I wanted to have a fully finished album out there that represents the sound coming out of this room with an artist that gives some clout. I work with a lot of great artists, but some of them aren't as well known. So having somebody with a little more clout and be like, oh, this was recorded here, then it's a little easier for me to pursue more work that way.
Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. So you already started recording this album with her, right? Because I've been watching you on social media.
Yeah, we've got pretty much all the meat and potatoes down. There's the finishing touches are being put on it, and the mixing and the mastering and stuff will have to be done. But they're looking at an early spring release for the record. So yeah, we've been hitting it hard.
That's great. And then are you going to go and tour this out with her? Because once it's released in the spring, I mean, what's going to become of that? More dates on the calendar, or how does it
That
work?
that's usually the case. But yeah, usually that's the case is once you have an album, you go and you support it. You do some support work for it. She doesn't tour extremely heavy because she's on the back end of her performing career. I can't believe she's 78. She doesn't sound or look it, but the road life it's hard, but there'll be support for the record once it's out.
Well, that's great. Yeah, no, she does not look that at all. But I mean, her career is just standing right beside her. It's just incredible. My question for you, which I was thinking of all day, I was like, I have to ask him, because you have such an expansive career yourself, do you think that you would be able to sit down one day and just say, I really want to focus on some songwriting yourself?
Yeah, and I think some of that just kind of comes naturally. I love producing. I love helping people get their songs out. And I think songwriting, what's the best way to put it? I think songs are given to you from some divine thing. So when the time is right, it comes down and it connects to you and you get it out there. And so yeah, I have parts that kind of I'll have a scrapbook and write some stuff down. But when the time is right, yeah, I'm sure something will come out. I'm not there yet. I'm not focusing on that yet. But now with the studio and slowing down and playing live and do more studio work, some more of that stuff, I'm more open to it.
Yes, yeah. Well, if I see it, it's possible. You know, I'm a psychic.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely. So, you have a busy year coming up. I mean, we're rounding out the end of 2025 as we enter 2026. You have Shaun's album, you have more dates to be playing, you have your new studio. What are you really looking forward in the next year?
I don't know. I just take things one day at a time. I'm blessed. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. I don't take for granted the fact that I get to do this for a living. My daughter's healthy. She's finished college. She's creating her own path in the world now. And as long as she's doing good, I don't care. Whatever happens happens. So I'll see which way the wind blows. I have some other projects that are being worked on and, kind of go see where the wind goes. I wasn't expecting to go to Europe with Lance last year. That was one thing that I got a phone call and they were leaving in 2 weeks for Europe and he needed a new drummer and I jumped on that and we went and did 6 weeks in Europe all over and then went back again in the spring. So we'll see what other opportunities show up. I like leaving the door open on it all. Whatever happens, happens.
That's great. Yeah, no, it's just really amazing. I know your daughter is tremendous. I still can see her. She was 5 years old, and we were walking her through the Peabody Museum in Salem, and she was always a little precious little smile, and really very lucky you
Yeah.
have her in your life.
So I
I
got picked you with my mom with her.
Yes, that was the last time your mom and I spent the day together. And I often think of that day, and especially the conversations we had. They were conversations we had never had with each other. It's just really amazing and a wonderful memory. Wonderful memory, yeah. But I wanted to make a point as I realized how many places you've gone in this life. It reminds me of the Dr. Seuss book, All the Places I Will Go.
Yeah.
If you had not relocated from the Northeast and gone down to Nashville, there's other music places in the country that you could have ended up. Where would you say you would be right now if it wasn't Nashville?
Yeah. Nashville always felt right to me from when I was in college. Nashville always felt like the place. I had a young family too, and at the time, Nashville was very affordable. What makes Nashville kind of unique is the community. And, when I first moved here, people said Nashville's a 5-year town. Nashville's, it takes a while. What they really meant was the bus goes both ways. People come into the city every day, people leave this city every day. When you become invested in this city becomes invested in you. It really is a city for people that want to establish and make a career. I don't know where my career would be if I didn't move to Nashville, but I felt it in my heart that I needed to move to Nashville, and if I wanted to have a career that the ceilings in where I was living was only going to take me so far. I had other mentors that I was working with in the Northeast, and they were saying the same thing to me. Like, you got to get out of here. If you got to get out of here, if you want to do, if you really want to do it, you can't do it here. I was like, okay, I get that. You got to be in it to win it. Now the world has changed a lot. You can be anywhere. That doesn't mean that you can't be anywhere and be successful. But for me, when in my career, I needed to be in Nashville to kind of grow it.
Yes, I agree. And I understand that feeling that you feel like you belong somewhere else. It's almost like an invisible pull that you feel like that's where I need to be. I've gone on many trips with the Army and I've been there for a weekend or 3 weeks. And I'm like, I could never live here. You
Yeah,
just sit back and you're like, this place is not me. You
yeah.
just do those things, like, oh, wow, when are we leaving?
And I've
Yeah.
been to other cities. I'm not going to say which ones, but but then again, I was up in New York this summer. We were in Manhattan with Lance. We played up at the Cutting Room, and every time I'm in that city and I'm walking around the city, going, man, I love this city. I don't know how I could afford to live here, but I love this city.
Yes, and you were in the cutting room, and that's one of my favorite venues. It's electric. Once you walk
Oh,
in the cutting room, everyone on stage sounds amazing. They go out of the way to help all the artists, even as an attendee. I mean, their menu is phenomenal. Everybody's always having a great time. I was just there several months ago. Peter Criss came for a drum event, and they honored Peter Criss and I think Rick Allen. Both of them were there for a big event. It was warm. I think it was the summertime. But they always have terrific shows. So the next time you come around here, I'm going to run out there and see you. I just want to take a chance to have you plug your social media, tell everyone how they can listen to your music, how they can download and check out Shaun's music as well.
yeah. I mean, well, you can check out Sean's music on any of the streaming platforms, Shaun Murphy. You could check out some other artists that I work with. Meg Williams, I'm on a bunch of her recordings. You can check out on the streaming platforms. Travis Bolin. If you're ever in Nashville, there's chances are you can see me locally playing with a great singer named Tim Andrews. We play many nights a week in town. My social is Tommy D Drums on Instagram, and then my studio is Coming Soon Sounds. They're both on Instagram. You can find me that way. I'm new to the social media world, and it's a necessary evil. We kind of all have to do it in this industry, but I'm a little too old for it. It's kind of hard for me to do it, but you have to do it. You have to do it. But yeah, you can find me there on those platforms and any groups and artists that I play with. I try to keep somewhat of a listing of stuff coming up if I get to socials, but yeah.
All right, great. Well, yeah, hang out with me and I'll teach you all about social media.
Please do. Yeah, that's it. I'm too busy making music.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, good. Well, we're going to roll out with one more last time by Shaun Murphy. and you are playing drums on this wonderful hit. Thank you again for being on. You know I love you. And this was a great interview. I really love hearing all about your journeys, and I'm sure our audience did too. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Tell me to go, no emotion, just a Have you ever been lost in love when you give up everything for that special someone? Talk to me, baby, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling low, when it's time to go. When I can't take it, when she says goodbye. Oh, she's leaving again. Said, please don't tell me why I'm living a lie. And she's leaving again. Now take all I've got in my talents too, because things don't shine the same. So without you now, want your love and I want your pain, and I wanna know the thoughts that are inside your brain. And I can't take it when she says goodbye. Oh, she's leaving again. Said, please don't tell me why I'm living a lie. And she's leaving again. All the money, diamonds and jewels, well, they don't measure up to the worth of you. Now take all the time you need, take a little more, I'll be waiting right here at home for you to walk through the door. And I can't take it when she says goodbye. Oh, she's leaving again. Said, please don't tell me why I'm living a lie. And she's leaving again. Ooh, leaving again. Oh, yeah. Leaving again. Oh, leaving again. She's leaving again.
You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Adele, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.